if we're going to have a decision, we want to have it with the community in mind. And if we've got a lot of people online, that is good, because it's like what we're going to discuss are the proposals and see what we can do as an action orientation rather than, hey, we've talked about it. Okay, so what? What are we going to do? So my opening remarks are, hey, guys, thank you for coming out. Thank you for those of you online. And that's my opening statement, but I'm going to turn it over for any opening statements that the elected officials will have, and then we're going to go to the city and county. Senator Lee, any welcoming statements?
Sure. Well, thanks for getting everybody together. I think like others, we've had a lot of requests from the community to address traffic safety along many, many roads, I think in addition to what's on the agenda here. But I'll just note in particular the corridor that touches on all our schools from Kaiser up and down to the elementary schools on either side, which is quite wide, and there's a lot of speeding and risky activity has been, I think, the top request from our school, like the folks that I've spoken to at our schools. And I think some of the crosswalks and whatnot have been identified. But I'll note too, when we get into sort of what those fixes look like, obviously we'll have to work with the city and county, but on the state side, we do have a new pool of Safe Routes to Schools funding that hopefully will be activated in the next few months that can help fill some of the gaps between city and state and partner on stuff like this. And secondly, I'll just note, I had asked earlier, because we had a lot of outreach in our community survey, should streets be changed to prioritize safety, even if it means slowing vehicles or removing parking? And we had little over 1,100 responses, which for any community survey is like pretty phenomenal. Yeah. And the results of that were 67% said yes, 19% said yes with reservations, and 14% said no. So I think there's in addition to the anecdotal, outreach we get, as scientific as this, can be, there seems to be an overwhelming push from the public to really take some meaningful action here.
So thank you, Senator Lee, for what otherwise is, let's slow down Hawaii Kai. Hawaii Kai loves the speed, and we're not even mentioning what's drag racing at Sandy Beach, right outside of Kalama Valley, and the noise that they make at night. That's not the subject of this, but that's something as a peripheral. This is a concern to constituents. The chair of the Honolulu City Council, Tommy Waters, any introductory opening remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Representative Ward and Senator Lee, for hosting us. Myself and Roger Morton, along with one of the traffic engineers, are here today to not only listen to the the community's concerns, but actually to work with you to find meaningful solutions to this problem. Speeding is happening all over the island, and we're doing our best to manage that. But I like the idea of having the community tell us directly what their concerns are. So thank you for hosting this.
Well, thank you for that, Tommy. Now to the star performer, Roger Morton, the Department of Transportation Systems, City and County of Honolulu. Roger, opening remarks before you give the presentation of the definition of the problem and what we can do about it, sir.
Okay, you're asking a lot, but I'll try. First, thank you for hosting the meeting, Gene. I am a Hawaii Kai resident. I live in Hawaii Valley. I drive the streets every day. So a little history back is, I've been in Hawaii Kai for more than 50 years. Go back to the days when Henry Kaiser was there moving waterways and putting in new homes. And also as part of that, he put in those oversized roads that we have in Hawaii Kai. That's something probably we wouldn't do anymore, the way they were put in. And those roads, basically, they encourage people to speed just because of the width of the roads. And we're blessed in Hawaii Kai. I mean, I think we are. But that's part of the challenges with that. The main roads, Hawaii Kai Drive, is a very wide road. So that's part of the issue. Also, we've evolved a long way from those days back in the 60s and the 70s. and really what's remarkable for me is and I think Senator Lee was picking up on it too, was that over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a mind change of people on the island, and people are concerned about speeding. People are concerned about pedestrian safety, crosswalks, and we have responded at the city island wide with many more initiatives than were ever done before. I mean, before the objective was to move more cars faster, all of those things. Now I think that people what I reach is an increase. Not that we don't have that; we have a lot of sentiment for that still, but we have a growing sentiment of people who just want their communities to be safe. So with our partners from the State Department of Transportation aren't here today, but in working with them, we have set out to in many parts of the island to set out to try to make selected areas safer. Now, our priorities, and we developed the first ever pedestrian master plan on the island, and that covers about 800 miles of what we consider to be substandard streets that need improvements. That's a lot of real estate, 800 miles. We've prioritized for safety improvements. We prioritized about 200 miles of those roadways, and most of our emphasis at this point is that we're trying to make our school areas safer. That's the first priority for all of us, is to try to make our keiki safer, and so we're prioritizing island-wide around schools, particularly. And there's just so many areas where there are needs, whether it be on the west side, whether it be in Kapolei, in Kealahou, all over the island. So we're trying, and we have a lot of things that we're doing. Some of the challenges that we have with, say, crosswalks are that we won't, in a street like Hawaii Kai, the standards now are not to put a crosswalk in unless you do more than just paint lines. You have to do other things in order to make that kind of crosswalk safe. And that's a challenge. What the FHWA studies and big data studies have found is particularly our kapuna get a false sense of security in an unprotected crosswalk, a marked crosswalk, but something that doesn't have protections. And what happens is they are disproportionately the ones that are involved in accidents.
Excuse me, Roger, are you talking code for blinking lights, signage?
All of those things. I mean, we can put there's many things in our toolbox that we can do, and including blinking lights, including raised crosswalks. I noticed that Ed Sniffen just put one in at Portlock on Kalanianiole about 3 weeks ago or something, and that seems to be effective. We know from our work around the country, but even especially in Hawaii, we know that speed humps work when we put them in. They do lower the speed. They are becoming a little controversial. We put them in. In some areas we put them in only to have selected constituents say, "Whoa, wait a minute, take them out now." So we want to make sure if we do anything that we're doing it in accord with the full community too, so we don't get ourselves caught in an area where we do something. And that's why it's nice to have this kind of a meeting. Another challenge for us with crosswalks is making sure that we won't put a crosswalk in unless it's ADA compliant. And for us, and some of the streets in Hawaii Kai, that means it's not as simple as just painting lines or doing something. We have to do curb cuts. We have to make sure there's an accessible path too, as part of it. Not things that can't be done. Don't get me wrong. It's just that they complicate our engineering a little bit. They add a little cost to whatever we're doing. So those are the challenges. Now, Gene, what specifically would you like me to?
First, I want to thank you for your opening comments, gentlemen, and for what otherwise we are going to go back to August and fast forward. In August, there was 3 clear projects identified. The first of which is it's on your agenda, the installation of a crosswalk of Kalama Valley Community Park.
Yeah.
Constituent driven, again, call saying my kid goes to the ball field, walks cannot walk across to get in my car because I'm the parent and I feel, why don't you guys have a crosswalk in front of the Kalama Valley Community Park? Of which historically, there's no crosswalks in Kalama Valley since Mr. Kaiser, who you just referenced from the beginning. So the Kalama Valley Community Park, a crosswalk there? Yes, no, how can we do it? And what do the rest of us think of it?
So I
Those
talked
of
to,
you online, you can weigh in on this.
sure.
And
Talk
those
to
of you
my,
sitting here also, you can weigh in. We have a microphone right here.
so I talked to my staff too. We did go out and we did do counts to see if the crosswalks were warranted. And unfortunately, the volumes were low. We're going to go back on the weekends, but I think that we can also use some common sense too. That this is an area where children play. That even if the counts are a little bit low, I'm going to kind of put a little bit of pressure on my staff to find them warranted, because that's what we live by every day. We live by these warrants. We use professional standards for doing it. I'm told in that particular area it doesn't do it, but I think that we can consider other factors besides the mechanical, how many people are crossing there and all of those things. We had looked at it. It's a community park. It's used by kids, and I'll have my staff go back. They already told me they're going to go and do this study over again, but they're going to do it on the weekends.
Okay, that's
rather than
key.
than on the weekdays, because that's when you're going to get park use is going to be on the weekends. So that's what we're going to do in that one, is we're going to go back on the weekends and count. But even if we're close, I mean, my heart would be that it deserves to be warranted as a crosswalk.
Thank you for that, because to make it valid, the kids are in school.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're in school. Hawaii Kai has got 96825, the highest education per capita. So I know Hawaii Kai's parents have got their kids in school, and you measuring the crosswalk at the community park then is not there.
We're going to do it on the weekend.
Going to do it on the weekend. Thank you for that. Tommy,
We
context.
talk for a minute, because I know on the agenda there's 3 crosswalks that people are interested in. But generally, Director, what are the guidelines that DTS uses in deciding whether or not to put a crosswalk in and or even take a crosswalk out?
Sure. We follow the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices as our Bible. And when we get down to specific criteria, what's in that for crosswalk, let me turn it over to Aaron and just have him just speak a little bit about exactly what we look for.
Good afternoon, everyone. Aaron Redoble with DTS, traffic engineer. So our current guidelines for crosswalk evaluation is 20 pedestrians per hour. Now, there's going to be different guidelines for Kapuna or for children. So I have to double check, but I believe we double those. So if they meet the 20 at any hour of the 24-hour count, that's when it's warranted to mark crosswalks. So other than that, I believe there are other things as Director Morton mentioned about ADA access, curb ramps. So those things have to be in place, because putting a marked crosswalk without a curb ramp would be in violation.
Is that with the bells and whistles, the lights also, or crosswalk? We're speaking generic, or we're talking about the ones you said, but particularly on Kalanianu Highway is incomplete just as a crosswalk?
Well, on a 2-lane road, I was speaking of a 4-lane road with more pedestrian volume, more vehicle volume. But on a 2-lane road, we don't require all the bells and whistles. We just require a crosswalk.
Okay, got it. Tommy, does that answer your question earlier?
Yes, but I just want to be clear, though, that what the engineer just said was you need to make it ADA compliant.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So before we put a crosswalk in, I think we'd have to also, would that be DTS that makes it compliant with ADA?
It could be. I mean, DDC does a lot of ADA work every year.
Who's DDC?
The Department of Design and Construction. So let me explain what we do at DTS. I don't own any heavy equipment. I don't own anything like that. I mean, what we do is we engineer the streets. We work with our sister agencies, usually either the Department of Design and Construction or the Department of Facility Maintenance, who actually have capacity to go out that. Now, having said that, we will do small jobs too. We will, we do small jobs, but if we do small jobs, we're going to, small jobs are not as small as you think they are. They're always a little bit more, and we budget for those in our capital improvement budget, which we're going through right now with council member Waters and others right now. But my first one on that would be to look to see if our partner agencies could help us and what we could do it. If it's a real small isolated one, there might be some chance that we would be able to do that and do it faster.
Okay, that sounds good. Senator, do you want to mention anything, or we're going to move on to another component, because I was going to do all as the usual. Here's all the presentations. Then you'll put the Q&A. I want to know if there's people online who are in the Kalama Valley area of the park and have some questions to the DTS or the representatives or the senator that you would want to ask questions now, and we can put you online ASAP. Please raise your hand and say your name. Okay, got it.
My name is Aaron Thacker, and I live actually at the intersection of Hawaii Kai and Kealahou streets, and that's obviously a very dangerous intersection. Multiple traffic accidents and major destruction to our wall has occurred multiple times. And
are you the gentleman who almost got hit when? Because the point is, you are number 2 on the agenda for the discussion. We're now only talking about the community park. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if there's some parents who want to emphasize the ballgame, because your area is very important. And if you're not the guy who got hit, I know there's somebody else who almost got run over at that intersection you just referenced. Okay, anybody with the community park wants to ask a question or wants to make a statement or a comment? The Hawaii Kalama Valley Community Park and a crosswalk there.
I can report though, from the perspective of there's an elderly gentleman that always walks in front of our house, and he actually is a coach that coaches at the community park, and he's mentioned on numerous occasions to me personally as I'm doing yard work out front that he's a soccer coach at the community park, and he says that there's lots of traffic going very, very fast, and there's nowhere for the kids to cross, and it's quite dangerous for them when he's out there coaching them. And he's even noticed motor scooters, electrical bikes, and things, and people just do all kind of hot rodding, especially the motorcycles and the mopeds. They'll do wheelies and things right along the street going full bore. And he's quite scared sometimes because he's an elderly gentleman. He's actually a Vietnam War veteran. So, he's still doing service to his community, and, God bless him, and he's fearful for the kids because he wants the best for his kids when he goes out there and coaches them in the soccer games. Yes.
That's good background information. But I saw Kaleo. Kaleo, is that you with your hand up? Is that you, Kaleo? Yeah. Okay, Kaleo.
Yeah, Gene.
Your comments, questions, concerns?
Thank you guys for hosting this for us. Kalama Valley is a two-lane road. And maybe a couple years back, Chrisley and myself actually walked down to the park and we were talking about this particular issue. And as we were looking at, what we could do, there was a mom pushing her kid in a stroller, and she had a hard time getting across because she had to, try and poke her head out around the parked vehicles. And there was a couple times where she poked her head out and she would have to, come back in between the cars and poke her head out again. So I know this is not a 4-lane road and it doesn't maybe constitute all the bells and whistles, but I think just from the point of sight perspective, I think looking at a crosswalk there with lit, beacons would be a good idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in the immediate live audience, General, do you have something to say about the Kalama Valley Community Park? Yeah, this is, I guess, the podium of which, do we have a microphone or do we give them this?
I'm a neighbor of Kalama Valley. I don't live in Kalama Valley. I live next door to it. But what we were talking about is near and dear to our heart. And we were just talking about speeding on the way here because cars were going by us like we were going backwards, But I am a little concerned about some things. And the traffic engineer, Aaron, you might be able to shed a light on a little bit. But when we talk about crosswalks, I think of this now. This takes us into a different direction with the way a typical crosswalk looks like. A typical crosswalk doesn't slow you down. You drive right through it. In fact, you may be going so fast you don't see a person on the side of the crosswalk. This type of design, and there's lots like this, will slow you down. And so I was kind of making a pitch for that concept. And I don't know, how often, this crosswalk in conjunction with the flashing lights, I think would be a venue to look at seriously, with it. So that was my input for the day with it. So one more thing with the speed humps too. They're sprouting up kind of like weeds everywhere. I'm all for slowing down, so I'm not critical of the speed bump per se, but I just feel like they need to be put in front of, they maybe need to be a little more substantial in front of the schools and fire department and parks where their kids play and everything, and less prevalent on other parts of the island. Just, if there is a lot of kids, I kind of hope that we look at overhead pedestrian walkways for them, to get across to the other side. That gets them away from the road and over the top. And it's just too bad that can't be standardized. I mean, our roads are standardized. We're in compliance with the road widths and everything. If there couldn't be a pedestrian walkway that's standardized. So
thank you, General. A question that came up, Roger, if I may ask, you remember your department did a very scientific, what percentage of the people driving when they saw somebody in the crosswalk actually stopped? And Hawaii Kai had the worst record of running through that and not respecting. And I think we've gone up from 75% bad to better.
Yes, we have gotten better. And I think that we weren't trying to single out communities. We're just trying to focus on, I think it's an island-wide issue that we have, that there's a culture of not stopping at crosswalks. I see it every day. I walk over to City Hall every day. And when I cross South Street, I mean, unless I take an affirmative action of stepping into traffic, most of the traffic will just will go past me and won't stop. But that's I think it's more of our culture here in Hawaii and on Oahu that it's going to take police department to enforce in order to change that type of behavior.
But are we still doing those shaming signs?
We are, and they're not. I mean, they're. We don't like to call them shaming. They're awareness signs.
Okay.
But we put those out, and our staff. Correct me, Aaron, but I think we're still going back to update them, right?
Yes, I believe quarterly.
So on a quarterly basis, we go back out and we measure, and we will ultimately have some metrics to see if we made a substantial change. But most of it is for awareness of our entire community.
What's the shaming sign?
Okay, so what it is we put we go out and we measure by observation what percentage of cars stop when one of our employees is clearly trying to walk across the street. They put their foot on the street, and so it's a clear indication. The cars have to be so far back, and we measure the percentage. And I think in Hawaii Kai had the dubious distinction of having we did it around the island, but it was like 26% compliance. And this is right by Kaiser. So this is not, and as Gene said, after the quarter was done, we went out and we measured it again. And I think Hawaii Kai bounced back up. I don't know exactly what that means statistically.
But we were the worst on all of Oahu.
Yeah.
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 Oh, the August one. Okay. So, so we were shamed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought you actually put up a sign.
No.
No, we just,
That's a good idea.
It's like a yard sign.
yeah.
It's like
we have to
the
share-
front, you get it for a week. This person's been seen speeding in front of kids.
Hey, restaurants, if they're not approved,
Yeah.
they get a placard, unsafe red signs. Or
But
whatever.
I want to comment on two things that were raised. If I was looking at your phone rate, and forgive me, the picture was quite small. It looked like one of the crosswalks that
Tiger.
was painted with
Yeah.
some sort of
It's like a 3D.
design.
Yeah.
There's a federal, that's the one.
Yeah.
There's a a federal manual that sort of dictates
Yeah.
typical street design parameters, all
Yeah.
that sort of thing. That was recently updated just this past year. And
It's in
the-
discussion now, Chris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You mean discussion here?
No, it's in discussion nationwide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, one of the things they look at are more things like that are a little bit more creative, colors and,
Yeah.
and other visibility kind of stuff. The second thing I want to comment on, which came up, particularly for, I think to Roger's point, HPD can't be everywhere, which we know. And there's rather controversial approaches that have been taken in the past. Back in the day, we had van cams for like a hot minute before everyone decided that was a lousy idea, or at least lousy implementation. The Department of Transportation at the state side has been experimenting with red light cameras for the last year and a half or so. The results of that have been, from everything I've seen,
Very
been
positive.
surprisingly positive.
Yeah.
And for a lot of folks out there, no one's suddenly freaking out that they're unfairly being singled out or anything like that, from what I've heard. That's led to a discussion this year. There are several bills pending in the state legislature that would authorize DOT to do fixed speed cameras, not in the fashion of van cams from way back when, but rather done, I guess you could say, right this time, hopefully. And the idea is you have a company that can step in the right places, that can put in some sort of monitor, like, for example, a school zone where you'd have people flying by on a regular basis. And the camera would automatically catch those folks who are going excessively beyond what's safe, and get around having to have an officer stationed there. There's some protections we've been looking at to put in place. For example, we don't want a company that has a financial incentive to go ticket everybody and their brother. So we've made very clear in the law that there's a fixed contract with whoever's going to be running the cameras. And if they catch one person, they catch 1,000, they get paid exactly the same. So there's no financial incentive to do things poorly. Also, all the data and everything else has got to be used only for the purpose of adjudicating what would be a traffic crime or something to that effect. Cannot be used for any other purpose. There's no active monitoring, tracking people where they're going or anything like that. So that's a bill that's currently being proposed and is under consideration in our legislative session right now. In all likelihood, some of the earlier drafts, I imagine, that we saw earlier would probably be more likely to pass, which would limit the installation of some of those cameras to school zones and sort of key sensitive areas for a trial period to see how it goes, similar to how we did a slow rollout with the red light cameras. So if there's interest from the community, one of the things that we can look at is picking one of these school areas where there's, to Roger's point, not a lot of compliance, and try something out there. And like the red light camera, there was a period where nobody got actual tickets. They just get warnings. So you have a lot of awareness built up in the community. There's signs put up and everything. But we could try that if that's something that folks are interested in.
It's a great update of what we're doing now at the legislature, including legalizing jaywalking, which we won't get into, but that's something that we're trying to talk about. And the neighbor islands love it. We on Honolulu are kind of legalizing jaywalking, not so sure of that. Okay, we want to hear more testimony about the first project, and that is the one at, we got to give it there. Your name, sir?
Herb Schreiner, community member, neighborhood board. It's just a question. He brought up speed cameras, and it could be in the area we're discussing, but how much leeway is given on the miles per hour, or is there none? If it's a 30, you get 31, you got a ticket.
I think generally,
Let me give.
I give it.
Roger, could you pass your microphone? So, no, you're gonna ask them.
yeah, generally speaking, in the past that had been one of the concerns with van cams, that people are just getting dinged for the most minor thing. Part of the discussion we've had here, and DOT's testified to this effect, that you want a buffer between the actual posted speed limit and when someone would actually get a ticket. So it's beyond a reasonable doubt that you're in excess of what's safe in the area.
Yeah, I saw as a cop, you kind of gave a buffer before you give a ticket, and we all had different levels, like 5 miles, 10 miles, so I was just
Does your HPD have a buffer 5 to 10 miles an hour?
No.
Generate?
no
No.
buffer. They can tag you for one over. But
You're sworn to silence because you're a retired policeman, or?
let me see. Okay, no chief up
Okay,
there.
got it.
No, but yeah, you
A good question.
you don't know.
That was a good question.
You may have an speedometer.
Okay, more comments and questions? General, come on back. You got to be on the microphone so people can hear you, not just those in the building.
I'm glad we have a former police officer here. I just was, it astounds me a little bit, though. We don't talk about the police more when it comes to these situations. And they play a very important role in our community for speed control on the highways and the back roads and by the schools and everything. And if I recall, there's a manning deficit right now at the police department. And I was kind of wondering out loud, and maybe, when was the last time the police department ever had an increase in manpower? The population's growing here wildly, and I bet you they haven't had an increase at all since maybe the days when we had it's been going down. So anyway, that was the only point I wanted to make too.
You want to respond to that? Herb?
Yeah, and we all know that there's a police shortage, big time. Our average in Hawaii Kai is 3 officers and a sergeant. It's a 7-beat section from New Valley to Makapu. And those 3 officers are basically working the crime part and not so much the traffic part. And thanks to the city, we'll see how those cameras work at the lookout. So that may free up some officers. But it would be nice to have at least 5 officers of the 7. But nobody wants to be a cop anymore.
In relationship to the cameras, I spoke on the floor today on the very bill, Senator, that you're talking about. I said, if we hired enough policemen, we wouldn't have to use these technology and the cameras and the other things. But we are, 450, 500 short? How many policemen are we short?
Over 400 police officers.
Over
short
400
right now.
police
So we're looking at ways to incentivize the hiring of new police officers with bonuses and whatnot, and then incentivizing the veteran police officers who we want to stay on the force rather than retiring. So we're trying to get creative in looking at things like that, but it's monetary really as an incentive to stay working.
Okay, so staying on course, this is the Kalama Valley Community Park. Unless there's any more comments, we're going to go on to the next discussion of the crosswalk at Hawaii Kai Drive and Kealahou. Any other comments on, the only thing we're missing, Roger, in fact, let me ask this before we move on to the next area, is the size and shape of the crosswalk. Any comments about, Kalama Valley near the park there is pretty.
Well, I think the issue was brought up of sight view, that you, if there's a lot of parked cars, and one of the things with the crosswalk is that we would restrict parking, by a crosswalk so that there was adequate sight view so that you could be seen and you could see. That's the key for crosswalks would be that. Now, as we do follow, we got in trouble a few times when we did some unusual things here. The Federal Highways Administration came after us and threatened us with safety money when we painted streets on Oahe Street. So there is, I don't want to, there are some treatments that are allowed that are more than what we normally do. And as Senator Lee mentioned, there is more flexibility in the new version of the manual for uniform traffic control devices. That manual was really designed for state highways more than city streets. And there's a parallel group that also has standards that are appropriate for cities. And under the new proposed manual, we're able to use either one. That makes a big difference for us, is that we don't, if we do something non-standard and an accident occurs, then the city gets sued for that. That's been the issue where we have removed crosswalks. And that's part of the reason why is that if we put in traffic control devices that are not compliant with national standards and an accident occurs, then that will be part of the case. That'll be part of the accident adjudication case and perhaps damages will be, why did you deviate? Why did you not follow standard manual? And so it's something that I need to be concerned about as the director of transportation, to make sure that what we do does not lead us into an area that where if something does happen, that we're in an area where we're non-compliant with national standards. Right. The good news is that NACO has put out has a standard that's more appropriate for city streets, and it's a lot more flexible.
You mentioned painted streets. Is there an example that I can get my head around? Painted streets? What do you mean by that?
Painted streets where we had some rainbow crosswalks. We had and those are non-standard. So if you go to Seattle, they're all over the place. They just told the federal government, forget it, we're doing our own thing. But we had those. We received a letter from the Federal Highways Administration that said, eradicate those markings. And ultimately we did. And we've had, so we're very careful with deviating from a manual too much. I think that we can be, in this case, the purported issue from the Federal Highways Administration was decorative streets, and those things are sometimes distracting to drivers. And they have determined that as a safety issue. Because if you're just kind of looking at something that's unusual, they do it. Now, the highway signs where we say don't drink and drive and all of those things. Well, there's a directive out now that within 2 years they're going to ban the use of those messages on highway signs, on the variable highway signs, because they think that cute messages are distracting to drivers. So they want to use them only for highway purposes. Ooh. Yeah, but I'm just telling you, that's what I live with all the time. Is like we get these directives, and that's it's part of the job. So
Tommy's got a question or a point.
I do. I think it'd be helpful if you or your engineer can describe, because I know I think Kealahou brought it up, wanting stanchions in the middle of the crosswalk, but there's a difference between speed bumps, speed humps, and even you have those lumps leading up to,
and we have
crosswalks.
We also have raised crosswalks too.
And raised crosswalks. But what would it take to get one of those poles like you have on Pali Highway? It has an effect to make the driver slow down because you have to fit between the two poles.
It's called they're delineators, but it's a something treatment. What is it? A gateway treatment. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
But what qualifies for that?
No, I mean, usually for a gateway treatment like that, there would be a level of volume of traffic that would be normally used to be effective. I mean, I think they're effective on Pali Highway for sure. But we also put up at the school crossings, you see we sort of put in delineators right in the middle of the intersection or at the edges of the intersection, and those work too. Those are effective for just controlling traffic and especially the turning movements and things like that people do slow down for those. We have put some in Hawaii Valley. I don't know if we have any in other parts of
near schools, crossings at schools,
but only at the one school, I think, in Hawaii Kai.
Yes.
So I mean, those are things that we can certainly look at. And that's kind of what you're getting at, is that they're not. I mean, the Pali Highway ones are they're very effective, I think.
Roger, how many options would we have in front of the Kalama Valley Community Park? What comes to mind? You guys do this every day, particularly your engineer. Are there 2 or 3 things you could throw out, or should we move on to?
Well, I think the first one would be a crosswalk and parking restrictions close to the crosswalk. I think that would be,
okay.
The other things that we could do is signage. If we put up, signs that say stop here, that makes that's a fairly cheap alternative, too low cost alternative, but they're effective. If you go around the island, you'll notice that there are varying sizes. Sometimes they're larger in other areas, but so there's signage issues, there's striping issues.
But a hump or a bump or anything like that would not be appropriate for that.
Well, I didn't say it wouldn't be appropriate, but in order to put in a speed hump or a speed bump, we would want to go out and we'd want to actually look at it. Now, I'll say one thing on Hawaii Kai Drive, that the normal standard that we use is that we would not put a speed hump on a roadway that had a grade that exceeded 8%. And Hawaii Kai Drive is 10%. So
Roger, you're jumping ahead of one project after another. And I like that because I'm going to challenge you on that when we get to it. Now we're going to move from Kalama Valley Park to the Kealahou and Hawaii Kai Drive.
The intersection.
And I want to call on the gentleman who I shortened his testimony earlier. If he could proceed, sir, where the walls get hit and broken, and your testimony, if you could proceed with that. State your name again so we can remember it. And you are muted or something is not coming through.
Unmute. Okay. All right.
There
Can
you
you hear
go.
me now?
We got
Okay,
you.
outstanding. Yes, my name is Aaron Thacker, and myself and my family, we live at the corner of Hawaii Kai Drive and Kealahou Street, and we've noticed, obviously, we've lived there for over 5 years now, and we've noticed over the past 2 years or so that traffic conditions have progressively become worse, and there's maybe a number of reasons for that, but obviously the effects of that would have been fairly catastrophic, and almost I was almost witness to a lady who almost got ran over because we heard somebody barreling down Hawaii Kai Drive and didn't stop at the stop sign and just continued going down across Kealahou Drive, was supposed to turn right onto Kealahou Drive, and instead just kind of curved just a barely and jumped the sidewalk. And I heard a big bang as I was upstairs in our house. And I looked across and down into the area between, it's basically near the canal between our house and the golf course. And we noticed a lady was just petrified as she came within a few feet of herself and her dog being run over. And this occurred actually not at night. Like most of the time we think, oh, these things only happen at night. This literally happened at like 7:30 in the morning, when there's so much traffic of locals walking down the street here, and she had her little dog was there, like I think it was a French bulldog, I believe, and they were both petrified when I came out, and she could hardly even move because she was so like beside herself. This individual actually jumped the sidewalk, turned within the little area just before basically barreling into the canal, and then sped off, didn't stop, went down Kealahou Drive and went to like Sandy Beach or down to in that direction. Didn't even break a sweat or didn't even stop to see what was going on with the lady that he almost ran over. And this happened this past Labor Day. So this is a holiday period when, people are supposed to be going out and picnicking. So this happened at a very busy time. And we've also experienced, unfortunately, probably close to 7 or 8 accidents in that area within this two-year period. And I've sent pictures describing the incidents. A high-speed accident happened just this past August in 2023. Somebody just went straight through the intersection, basically just drove straight down the hill and basically destroyed 30 foot of our wall, and similarly 10 foot of our wall a year before.
Excuse me, Aaron. Excuse me. Did you send any of the pictures to any of the panelists sitting here in front of you today? Where did you say you took pictures? Where did you send those?
Oh, I sent them in previous emails, I guess. I can obviously attach those to individuals later on today, after this is done.
That will be helpful.
Oh, yes. 30-foot section of wall got destroyed, and we've had to repair. It's quite devastating. And, each time the police came to the incident afterwards, as I called the police, And they had mentioned to me, you know, just like the gentleman before had mentioned, the retired cop, that they have only 4 officers. And I've had multiple officers tell me that. And they actually, it's even worse because they have to travel in 2s often now for safety reasons. So if one responds to one accident, they literally have to go in 2s. So that takes out half the entire, you know, for one incident. So however long that is, 2 cops are not available, you know, for safety reasons. So it's even harder than just the 4. And one of the other accidents that happened there within the 3-month period, somebody also barreled through Hawaii Kai Drive and took out 2 very large electrical boxes, HECO electrical boxes. And I thought the power was going to go out in our entire region because that's right in front of the golf course. And they're like 4 feet and they're probably weigh several hundred pounds or maybe 1,000 pounds. And I have pictures of the cranes of HECO coming in to remove those things. And they haven't been replaced as of now yet. They just put concrete over it. So, you know, I mean, tremendous damage, probably hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage has already happened in that area. They wiped out our community mailboxes as well. And those people just left. They hit it one night and then they just moved on. So we just had to replace it ourselves. And recently we just replaced it with something more solid and the like. So, and multiple incidents of other people being reckless running through that intersection. And, you know, we're so scared at this point to even be in our backyard because, you know, people race through there and just don't even stop at the intersection. And then they come down Kealahou and they take a left up Hawaii Kai Drive and speed there. And I know many people who walk across the street onto Hawaii Kai Drive, and there's that little grassy area, and they walk up there, and it curves ever so slightly. But as people race up that hill like that, they're in danger of being run over as well because there's no sidewalk, there's no crosswalk, and so I've had a number of people that have come by because I talk to them all the time that said they don't feel safe sometimes when they're walking, so they'll actually go very far into the grass area to walk up the hill because of fear somebody will jump the curb as it comes around. And multiple other homes up the hill on Hawaii Kai Drive had also been damaged because of reckless drivers. So you just have to look at the police reports to see. And obviously many kids, many mothers with strollers are walking in that area. And it's obviously quite dangerous that at any point somebody could take a life, and that could be the driver's life as well, because we haven't even talked about them. I mean, like the gentleman that in August of 2023 that hit our wall and took out a 30-foot section, if his airbag didn't go off, and I told the gentleman that, I was like, you know, young man, he was a young man, probably in his upper teens or lower 20s. And I said, if your airbag didn't go off, he would definitely have died right there on the spot because he didn't have his seatbelt on. So I'm assuming he had a seatbelt and his airbag went off because that was a very, very heavy impact. The car couldn't move and it had to be towed as well. It was completely destroyed. So.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. That's excellent background information on what otherwise there's a 2-step process we're doing here, the definition of the problem and then the solution. So I want to, anybody else got a definition of the problem? Yeah. There at Kealahou and Hawaii Kai Drive.
Yes. I was going to correct the way he's calling Kealahou. Yeah. But yeah, I was a beat cop out in Hawaii Kai. I don't know if it's speeding or whatever, but it seems that every so often somebody does not make the turn. So yeah, it happens, and I'm sure it happened numerous times. So the issue for the city would be you got to slow the cars down or make them aware going into the T section. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know about crosswalks and stuff, but that is more the problem at that location is they just come down and for some reason they don't make turns. And even at, 25 miles per hour there, 35, it's going to be a bad accident no matter what. But that's my outlook on that intersection.
And we have more to come. But that's the one we want to see what may be the solution to what otherwise is a T section, Hawaii Kai Drive, Kealahou, and walls knocked down. And actually, they're not stopping. We're concerned about getting citizens across from one side of the street to the other.
So, well, there's that.
That's a danger. Yes.
You want me to
Yeah,
respond?
we want to, we've defined the problem and now we want to hear the solution from Mr. Morton.
So here's a couple of solutions that we can do. And we have a few tools in our for the speeding in general. One of the techniques that I use is our staff will go out and will document that speeding is occurred, and I have no doubt on that street that it probably is. So one of the first things I do is I'll write a memorandum to the chief, informing him that our staff has detected speeding on that street and requesting special enforcement for that street. And they'll send out traffic people. They don't, that's not necessarily taken away from the beat officers, but the lieutenant will send out or the captain will send out somebody specifically to enforce. And that helps. And I do that very regularly. Now on Kealahou Street, we could, and we have proposed to put in a parking lane along that. That would have the impact of reducing the apparent width of the street, even though all we're doing is painting a line for where parking can occur.
On both sides or one side?
On both sides.
Oh, both sides.
I have a plan, in fact, where we can share it with you for how that might look. That reducing that will reduce the speed of travel. On Hawaii Kai Drive, I know we had proposed earlier what we called a road diet. I don't like that term because it scares everybody away when we do that. But we could go back and look at things that we could do in that section, let's say from what I call the box houses down to the stop sign. That we would do something there that would reduce the width of the travel lane again, and that's a known technique for doing it. Now, when we proposed the entire area, I know that you had a community blow up over that, and
road slimming, they called it.
Yeah,
to Hawaii Kai Drive would become a 2-lane instead of a 4-lane.
Well, we could do that like in not in the entire extent of Hawaii Kai Drive in that area, but we could do it in that area where we have a known issue of cars coming down and then having accidents, and that's a way that we could reduce the likelihood that there would be future accidents. We don't have to do the entire thing. We could try it out in a section and see how that works. That's, I mean, what I hear from people is the cars come down too quickly. Sometimes they try to go around. These are probably kids going to sandy beach is probably what is the prime suspect probably. But there are ways that you can reduce the speed in those areas without. And our studies show that we would not impact. There wouldn't be congestion. There wouldn't be any real impediment to the traveling public.
And Roger, you can actually experiment. You don't have to do like the whole thing.
I don't have to do the whole thing. I mean, our staff said maybe we look at from where those houses are down, because that's a very short section, but that's the section where the most of the accidents occur is at the bottom. That we know that I think we've determined that there is speeding going down the hill. So we know that. And that's, but those are some simple things in the scheme of things that we could do, and I think that they would be effective.
On that point, I was just going to say on that point, on the Kailua side, some years ago we had a similar situation where there was a 4-lane wide plus a little bit of parking road, Kealahou Drive, which is kind of like the major thoroughfare through in China Lakes and that part of Kailua. And exact same concerns were brought up. There was a lot of crashes, a lot of near misses for pedestrians trying to dart across and everything. You had with 3 different schools on that stretch. And so the city, over the objection of the community at the time, I think there was a lot of objection. Kealahou, right, did that same thing. They went from 4 lanes down to 3. It was like 1 lane each direction and a center lane where people can turn and all that. And after people got used to it after a few months, and ever since, it's been really popular, and it's been really counterintuitive because you think and I thought this too originally at the time. You go from 4 to 3, right? It's just a reduction in overall volume,
Yeah.
and it's going to be an increase in traffic and all that. But it's kind of counterintuitive, and that actually isn't usually the case. It's the opposite, because people are able to more easily turn off to go to left or right or whatever without having to switch lanes and do all this stuff. The visibility is a lot clearer, especially for people who are on the sides. The parking is a lot better because you have more distance between parked cars and the traffic flow. So it was not only as successful as it's been in reducing crashes and everything else and increasing safety, but without impacting overall traffic flow. And right now, the last part of that that section that wasn't done, it's still 4 lanes, when the commercial area is slated to get the 2-lane treatment instead, with pretty huge support from the community based on past. So if there's anything, I'd say the experience on our side has definitely demonstrated, once you get past the sort of cognitive, like, what is this? And sort of look at the data and what happens, the experience in places that have done it, it is a real tool that can make a huge difference on a whole bunch of different fronts.
He sounds like the transportation chair in the Senate. Anything else on Kealahou and Hawaii Kai Drive?
Yeah, this is Bill Sims.
Bill Sims. Okay, please proceed.
Yes, I'm familiar with that area. And basically at Aaron's house, that's a dead end on Hawaii Kai.
Mhm.
People are missing the stop sign and going right through, almost through his house. So can you make his wall more visible so that people know that's a dead end, even if they miss the stop sign?
Can I respond?
Yeah. Sometimes we'll put in a larger stop sign, and that helps too.
Oh. Blinking lights. Mr. Sims, was that your point or the question? Because we've got another.
No, that's the question, because that T intersection dead ends right into Aaron's house, and people are missing the stop sign and going right through it,
Right.
into the wall.
Correct.
Yes.
So, Mr. Morton, you can make a bigger sign. Can you have the wall grows in the dark? I'm joking, of course. What for this case?
Well, the wall's the responsibility of the homeowner. But as I say, I think the keys to that are try to reduce the speed of people coming down the hill first. And second, if we have an issue, if we have a history of people that for whatever reason blow through that stop sign, then we can look at that issue too to see if number one, what our staff would do would be take a look. We'll take a look at accident history. Okay, that's what we'll do. We'll look at accident history. But part of the accident history that we look at, the analysis is, if we did this, would it have impacted that accident? And sometimes, from some of the accidents that you've described, it just sounds like it was really the guy behind the steering wheel that was really creating the problem, and all of the safety measures that we would do would not be effective. So it's just
what is the percentage of slowing people down, via either signs or bumps or what is the most?
Sir, we're being recorded. Could you speak into the microphone, your question? And then David Monk, you're on next. I see. And you guys with your hands up, just be patient.
My question would be, what's the best solution to getting people to slow down? In other words, obviously a policeman standing in the corner would be a good deterrent. But but the speed bumps like you have outside of Lowe's on Halamoana Nimitz area,
right?
Though that's a repetitious bumping type of surface, as opposed to a calming type of thing. Which is the most successful?
Well, each one is dependent upon the actual site conditions. That's one thing. And for those ones, we're very hesitant to put those in a residential neighborhood because it sounds like a automatic gunfire all night long. And you don't want that. I mean, I can tell you that, they work in those because there aren't any residences in the area. It's all commercial. But in a residential neighborhood, we have to be concerned about the noise impacts of whatever we do too. And that's because people will demand we take them out if they're if their bedroom, if they're hearing lots of noise every night. So we're careful at that one. But again, what we do in terms of your question, on Harding Avenue, for example. We put in some delineators and we check what the speed was before. We do a study before, we do a study after. And there is a percentage decrease, and it varies. There is no ideal solution that's going to be universal for every street. Everyone has to have engineering judgment to take a look at what's the condition of the street, what's going on, and our engineers are trained to do that. That's what their job is to do that, and that's why I hesitate to give you a one size fits all, because there isn't such a thing.
Well, I'll have another point to bring up a little later.
This is
Mr.
Bill
Monk,
Sims again.
Sorry, Mr. Monk is next. Mr. Sims, we'll get back to you. David, please proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Gene, and thanks to the panelists for this discussion. Gene, you said we've defined the problem, but we've only defined part of the problem. That's a three-way stop T intersection, and people blow through the stop signs in all three directions. And you mentioned earlier that I think you were talking about my own experience a couple of months ago where I was nearly hit crossing Hawaii Kai Drive. The car coming up from the beach, making the left turn, blew through that stop sign when I was already in the lane, and its front tire actually made contact with the heel of my shoe. So that one shook me up. There was also, it's not just cars. There's a bicycle racer in the valley who blows through the stop sign coming down the valley and turning right onto Hawaii Kai Drive. And a couple of years ago, he nearly hit me, even though I had looked all three ways before trying to cross the street. He just came roaring up out of nowhere and without slowing down, made that right turn. My suggestion would be that we put red flashers, three-way red flashers at that intersection. I don't think crosswalks would solve the problem of people who don't observe stop signs, but maybe getting their attention with flashers would. So I recognize very much the problem that Mr. Thacker's had at his location, because that's a serious issue at that intersection, but it really applies in all directions. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Mr. Morton, any response to what otherwise blinking lights, or because the fact is they're not stopping, or if they're stopping, it's a rolling fast stop?
I mean, we can look at blinking lights. Blinking lights require underground conduit. They require power source. They require. I mean, yeah, we do some solar too. They have they have a pretty high maintenance issue with them too. But certainly, we can take a look at flashers. Again, we have. We have communities all over the island too. So flashers are one tool, as are larger stop signs and all of those things. The issue for that is recognition and visibility of the traffic control device, which is the stop sign.
But Roger, the point is, whether it's flashing lights or whatever, that has been a dangerous intersection for years and years. I tried to get a crosswalk like 15 years ago, and they said, well, we don't have the traffic count, or we don't have something proximity. And I thought, oh my God, this is crazy. But when you and Mr. Sniffen got ready saying, hey, we can do all kinds of calming nowadays, I was so encouraged. That was kind of the genesis of what we're doing now. The last David Monk almost got killed. The other guy almost lost his wall. So anything that you guys can do would be better than the status quo for the last 15 or 20 years.
Agreed.
That's saying message understood or taken, but the point is the options that you have there to slow the traffic down. You said, let's make the lanes from 4 to 2. And that's with the senator saying that worked very well in Kealahou.
4 to 3.
Oh, 4 to 3.
Right.
That's right, with the senator. Okay. Anything else on Kealahou and Hawaii Kai Drive? Otherwise, we're going to go to where the keikis have got a big issue. Okay. Wait, I didn't recognize Natalie. Natalie, you haven't spoken yet. The other two have. And we'll get to you. Natalie Iwasa, please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having this discussion. First of all, I'm just going to kind of comment on different things that were said. Thank you, Roger, for not putting in speed humps on greater than 8% inclines. That's very dangerous for bicyclists. And Chris, I wanted to let you know the one that is over by the women's prison is especially hazardous for bicyclists because we're coming down that hill and there's no place else to go. With respect to the crashes at the corner and going into the wall, we have the same problem down here on Lunalila Home Road. There's a home that has had their wall crashed, I don't know how many times since I've lived here. What they ended up doing is putting those reflectors along the wall, so that might be something that Mr. Thacker could look into. Roger, with respect to potentially putting in parking along Hawaii Kai Drive on the way to Kealahou, that was actually proposed about 10 years ago, and I had opposed it. And the reason is that when bicyclists are going through a lane that is parked, where cars are parked, we have to go out into the travel lane to make sure that we don't get doored.
Yeah.
And so that's really not, I mean, I appreciate the suggestion, but I don't think it's the best. If you're going to consider something like that, I do like the 4 to 3 lane conversion, or potentially putting in a bike lane in the uphill side, but not putting in parking. Chris, thank you so much for your example of Kealahou Drive. And I think the most that, if I'm not mistaken, now has bike lanes in both directions. So I agree that that is a much better situation than we had, say, like a decade ago. So those are my comments for now. And thank you so much for having this discussion.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Natalie. Roger, any comments from Bicycle Mom? I didn't use her handle, but Natalie is better known as Bicycle Mom.
You know, with a 3-lane configuration, we probably have space that we could do that. Yeah, especially, and I like Natalie's suggestion on the uphill side is that's when they're trudging to get up the hill, and that makes it a little bit easier. So I think that those are things that my group should take to heart and take a look at.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, no, just to that point, since Natalie brought up bikes and everything, we have had requests from folks to connect, I think if I'm remembering this right, Kalama Valley with Camilo Iki and some of the other schools, because right now along the grassy strip at the corner, there's not sidewalks at all on that side. So you got to cross the street and then cross again to get back over. So it's extra risk. The other thing was for bikes in particular, getting from the community park, sort of at the base of Kalama Valley, down to, I guess, Sandy's area. They've been requested. Is there something there? Because that's obviously a high traffic corridor for everybody. And then getting over to Camilo Iki, because there's just not bike facilities at all, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in any of those streets, but something to think about, I think, to Natalie's point.
Okay. We have Greg Knutson. We're still in round 1. Those of you who've already spoken, we're going to get you in round 2. Mr. Knutson, is that you?
Yes, it is. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, please proceed.
I did join late, but on this discussion, I do feel that narrowing Hawaii Kai Drive in any sense from 4 to 3 or 2 in particular would be a bad idea. Everyone's talking about everyone speeding over the hill and then turning right going to Sandy's, but no, some of us live in Kalama Valley, and we would like to have 2 lanes there so the ones turning left at the T intersection can get home without a lot of delay. And I also felt, I put it into chat, that like David had said, the bigger problem is people just ignoring the stop signs, just going through. So I don't think it's speeding. Speeding is a factor. I think people do go too fast. But if they know a stop sign is ahead, so I really support the idea of a flashing light, the signs that say stop sign ahead with a yellow flashing light. There are electrical connections in that area. It wouldn't seem like that would be the hardest thing to do. We did hear at the Hawaii Kai Neighborhood Board from Aaron, and he has done an excellent job actually in reconstructing that wall and having reflectors on it, even some blue lights to make people think that there's some police presence. There is a city sign there that shows it's a T intersection with 2 arrows that currently has some graffiti on it. There is an improvement in the one that's there now over the one that was there before that was hardly visible. So the city has done some things to maintain that. But I do point out that there's graffiti currently on it, which of course diminishes some of its visibility. Even a bigger sign might be helpful for that, to show arrows going left and right that it is the end of Waikai Drive. So I really feel that that's good. Any narrowing of the lanes just seems to be adding congestion to the neighborhood, and I wouldn't really support that. The Waikai Neighborhood Board in the past had specifically sought banning parking on Waikai Drive going uphill close to the Bali style houses. So to reverse that now would be a step backward. And recently then we did, of course, encourage the city to examine whatever possibilities there might be, but including speed humps and crosswalks around the park, because that's a dangerous area for lots of kids. It's in use almost every day by many teams, a lot of young people crossing that street, a lot of dog walkers in the neighborhood find it very difficult to get across there. So I may have missed that earlier discussion, but I hope that's still under consideration to include possibly a speed hump or some way to slow traffic near the park and including crosswalks. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. We have covered a bit of that. Any comments, gentlemen, on that? Or we are again only in the proposal stage. And what I like what you said, we can experiment with what works and what doesn't work versus, hey, you get locked in with something permanently. Roger, you want to make any comments, or would you just say?
Well, I think the comment I would have would be that, as you can tell, it's complicated because you have competing views from the community over what works, and that is difficult for us to figure out exactly how to best treat the problem.
They try to run for office, you'll see multivariate analysis on different opinions in different ways. How democracy works, but it's the best system we've got so far. The point is, we're not locking anything in, but we're getting it to where we've got a consensus on these are the areas that we need to move to and we need to work on. I'm going to take a couple more questions. Then we're going to go to where the keikis are concerned at Kealahou School. We're at round 2. Kaleo, please proceed.
How's it? Roger, it sounds like you're in a situation of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I wouldn't want your job right now. But the concern is there's already cars parked on the side of the road, especially on the weekends on both sides of the roads.
Sure.
And
see them all every time. Yep.
Yeah, cars are still speeding up and down. I mean, we coach kids rugby right there at the community bathroom park at that stoplight, and you just hear cars flying by. So I don't know if minimizing the lanes or, cutting down the lanes from like what Greg was saying is going to help. One of the other issues is when there's an accident or if there's movies being shot right there along the Kealahou coast, they block off the road and they kind of detour everyone through Honolulu to Waikai Drive. And so now, like what Greg was saying, for us that live in Kalama Valley, we want to take that left, but for everybody who still wants to go to Sandy's or Nalo, when that road's closed, it just becomes heavy traffic. And I think you're just going to cause more, angry drivers, those trying to get home, those sitting in the traffic. One question I had is it possible to put in some bollards on that easement right in front Aaron's house that will at least help protect the pedestrians walking their dogs, the people trying to run his house? Is that a possibility? Or
repeat that? I didn't. Did you say bars or
bollards?
Oh, bollards.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that digging to the ground, they're cemented, so they're.
Oh, you mean? Oh,
pretty heavy concrete ones.
Oh, okay, like post 9/11 federal buildings. Okay, Roger, you want to talk about bollards?
Have we done? I don't think we've ever done bollards anywhere, have we?
We don't even have them here at the state capitol. You guys have them at City Hall, Tommy?
No. Parks and Recs puts bollards in, and I don't think we've ever put bollards in, as far as I know. Guardrails are something that we what we would warrant guardrails. I mean, when I say we would warrant, if a guardrail was to be put on a city street, it would come out of our department as a warrant. That we would go and then somebody else would put it in. It would be DDC would actually put it in, but usually the guardrails are not for that type of T intersection. They're at least, you know, you want to comment on that? I mean, elevation changes usually is where the guardrails go in, but you want to, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kealahou. We want to be cognizant of putting any type of roadside hazard, and a concrete filled bollard would cause more problems if people hit them. And then in the end, we would be liable for putting something that is non-standard. So guardrails, like Director Morton mentioned, is something that we could look at, but those are more or less for elevation change, or if there's a roadside hazard on this, if there's not enough. But for a dead end, it's usually signage. The simplest thing that we look at is signs and roadway pavement markings. So we could put stop ahead markings on the road as well to supplement the signage, and look at flashing lights that was mentioned. But as far as any type of a block of cement block is a roadside hazard in our eyes, and it would cause more problems than anything.
Okay.
I have a question for Aaron. He lives right there. Are you going to be okay with a flashing light, Aaron?
Yeah. Is your bedroom there?
Yes, I'm here. Flashing lights, you mean at the intersection?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Well,
I mean, I already have, like I said, multiple lights. I have like 3 blue lights on my wall. So I don't think at this point it's a visibility issue at this point. I think it's just distracted driving. People that are sleepy, people are not paying attention and just running right through. And sometimes what they really need is they need something to just wake them up and so they can gain control of their vehicle as they're sliding down Waikiki Drive. So none of these like there's a lot of visual things there, even on my wall at this point. And if they don't see that, I mean, you're putting an extra blinking light, I don't think is really going to help them. Because if anybody's been down recently down Waikiki Drive, they can see there's about 10 reflectors, there's about 3 blue lights. So if they have their eyes open and they're paying attention, they're going to see it. But if they don't, which is what I'm concerned about, is that they're not seeing anything and they're not really in control of their vehicle and they're just coming down. And so they need something physical to wake them up, or rumble strips or something as they're coming down the hill to wake them up. So they go, oh, wow, I'm about to hit the wall. I better like break it or do something before they're like 2 inches and then they realize they're awake, or because half the people can be impaired and there's just way too much traffic, like thousands of people coming down that hill or going up the hill at this point, that if there's nothing physical there, I'm afraid that we put more visual things like, narrowing the street just may not be enough, and they're coming to our area preferentially now because other regions like Kahala, like the representatives there said earlier, and Kailua, they have had these rumble strips and they do have these speed bumps. So now ours is the only 2-lane, 4-lane highway where they can just, and so I do see every weekend it's a noisemaker already. The people are just, they're revving their motors and they're preferentially speeding on our area, blowing through intersections. And I even showed a picture, I for a cop who did wheelies. I've had that at least 3 times in the middle of the intersection, somebody doing, kind of donuts. And I had to report that, and I made a police report on that. And it's obviously that's a hazard. I mean, these people are doing it intentionally, but if there's, more things to prevent them from being able to come down the hill to get that thrill, and then they, go right into I can show you those pictures as well, but it's obviously gotten to the point where they're actually physically coming to our area to do these dangerous activities. So whatever we can do to stop that would be, good for the pedestrians, because increasingly there's so much pedestrian traffic there that, kids, older people, we've already mentioned that. So something to protect them too, because there's so many people. If I did a head count, I'm sure many hundreds, probably 1,000 people walk in a full day down that intersection. So
You know,
Yeah.
Director Morton mentioned that rumble strips are noisy. That would, because you live right there, is that something you can deal with, the noise from the rumble strips?
You know what? I think it will minimize the traffic, because if you hear that, if I was to record the noises on the weekend, you would be amazed at the level of noise. I think it's much louder than any rumble strip. I mean, the motorbikelists that come at night, that come after the cops leave their shift, they know after 8 p.m. and then they do this preferentially. So I could deal with the rumble strips, I think, much more than I can deal with people, you know, going 50 miles an hour and intentionally hot rodding up Hawaii Kai Drive, coming in from Kealahou up there, because then they make a circuit. Literally, they go from Kalione Highway down Kealahou, up Hawaii Kai, go down Lunalilo, and then they go all the way down Kalione Highway and then do this route. I've literally seen a couple of trucks that do this circuit, I think, and they race.
You know,
let
me just chime in with something that hasn't been mentioned yet, particularly with respect to this intersection, because in other places, there have been other more expensive fixes to deal with these kinds of conflicts in the same intersection. And I guess let me throw this to Roger, but in some of the other neighborhoods that we've seen success, it's been moving to some sort of more roundabout kind of configuration where you can't just plow straight through. You've got to slow down.
Yeah.
You've got to.
I love roundabouts. Happy to go back and take a look at whether they make sense from that intersection or not. It looks like there's enough space there. And they do a tremendous job where they work. They do a tremendous job. I know there's a guy in Indiana, a mayor in Indiana, that has made it his lifelong. He's got like 100 roundabouts that he's put in his term. And he's written about in all kinds of traffic engineering magazines. I'm happy to take a look at whether that intersection would lend itself to a roundabout. There are more and more going in Hawaii, and they, I think that where there's enough space and where we do them right, they are effective. We can do small ones. And we probably would do fairly small ones in that area, but it definitely slows the vehicles down when you put in a roundabout. It's one of our tools.
And that's our objective. So we got a lot of tools in the tool shed. Mr. Thacker, thank you.
Looking at all the nodding faces, I'll tell my engineers to at least consider it. Now, when we put a roundabout in, don't expect we're going to do it next week. I mean,
that's a little more expensive.
A little more expensive. And
Herb, you want to add something there? Okay, we're still on Kealahou and Hawaii Kai Drive.
Exactly. Roundabouts would be good, but the cars coming down the hill may just have to go over those roundabouts.
Yeah, the fire trucks too. So the buses.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just got back from England not too long ago, and that's all they have, roundabouts. And I'd be afraid to drive there. But that intersection will probably be down to one lane, and everybody do I'm for the parking lanes. I'm for the larger stop sign. I'm for the flashing light, maybe at the stop sign, and roundabout sounds like a good addition.
We are going to move on after we have one more. David, you wanted to say something? We're going to go on to the queen of concerns, and that is the kids at Kealahou School. But make your
yes, briefly. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Somebody mentioned guardrails. In fact, right next to Aaron's house, there is a short section of guardrail over the drainage canal that has been a pile of twisted wreckage for at least a couple of years now. And that's not the first time that particular guardrail has been knocked over. I don't know whether the cars go into the canal or not, but they've certainly hit and destroyed that guardrail. The other thing is regarding visibility. Aaron's point is good about what he's done with his own initiative. But I want to repeat, that's a three-way stop, and all three ways get people blowing through the stop sign. So one thing we need to consider is, I think roundabouts are actually a good suggestion. But even with roundabouts, I think flashing lights to raise the visibility is still worth considering. So I'll stop with that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, David. Any comments before we move on to the queen of concerns? Roger?
I'll ask my folks to look at flashing lights. It's not I mean, we'll take a look at them again. I think there was a mixed jury even in this room over whether it was the visibility or whether it is the irresponsible driving of the people that are going through those. But you know, we'll put all of these into our analysis for sure.
And you recall what Mr. Thacker said? A rumble strips compared to what he hears at the intersection would be comparably favorable. But
well,
that
to
was
do anything like rumble strips, I can tell you that the first thing we would do, we would petition every neighbor in the area and tell them, because not all the neighbors are going to be for that.
What's your radius when you would petition neighbors?
How much?
How half a mile down the street, a quarter mile down the street?
Yeah.
10 houses down the street. What's your radius?
I guess we could look at half a mile at the point.
Yeah.
It just depends on how much noise, how much amount of rumble strips you put. The more you put, then that's going to generate a larger radius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I mean, it's clear that we would, with our experience with things like rumble strips, I'm very reluctant to put them in bedroom communities because they do generate a lot of noise, and even if one homeowner is willing to tolerate them, not all homeowners would.
Exactly. Okay, we're going to move on to what many mothers have called our office, and particularly in our earlier town hall in August, and that is the speeding and the endangerment of the children coming and going to Kealahou Elementary School. Mm-hmm. That has been one of my primary concerns, in the sense that there's a stoplight there, but there's nothing really slowing them down for the crosswalk when the stoplight is red and they speed up to get through it and up and down it.
Which crosswalk are you talking about, Gene?
We're talking about the crosswalk at the right across from Kealahou School. The side street is by the name of Is it Ahokini? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ahokini.
One below is.
Yeah.
It's the one in the middle there.
Anyway, I know which one you mean.
Okay, so the parental concern is how can we slow them down going up the hill?
Yeah.
And how can we slow them down particularly going down the hill, where they turn the corner rather blindly, and then suddenly there's the school right there.
I mean, the best way to make a crosswalk safe is put a traffic signal in. I mean, and that they're in there. So that's I mean, beyond that, I mean, it gets exceptionally hard to figure out what we could do beyond a traffic signal, because traffic signals are the most effective. You know, red lights are effective. We did do on Kapiolani when we had the Sarah Yarrow, we put in speed humps there. In my view, I take that road every day. They are effective. It's a nice flat road. It's not a sloped road, but particularly in that section where the traffic signal is. But Aaron, you got any thoughts on that one?
As much as we'd like to put speed humps,
Put microphone, please.
Yeah.
we have to think about the grade. So people,
What is the grade there, Aaron? It's 10%, 2% over?
it varies, but it is over the required or recommended grade that we cannot put a speed hump at. So all those people that are speeding, they'll just be launching off these speed humps, and then that would create even more hazards. So so it's a 4-lane road. You normally don't put speed humps on multiple lane roads. These are usually on lower 2-lane roads. We're kind of breaking rules by what the states have done, but we're taking risks. So when you do these risks, the lawyers are gonna.
But don't you have special things for elementary school districts or zones or something? Hey, slow down. There's kids here.
Yes.
There's signage, the yellow signs or something.
Well, one of the things that we are considering, and this will be news for Councilmember Waters too, but we are considering right now at a school zone, I think the treatment says 25 miles per hour school zone when children are present. That's dumb to me that it would say when children are present. I think that for a school zone, it should just be 25 miles per hour school zone, period. And that's one thing that we are looking at as a department to make that change in school zones.
Is it gotta be a statute or an ordinance, Tommy, to do that? Or can they
Yeah,
just do it?
I don't know if we might be able to do it, but we are looking, and we are working with, I don't know if you're involved in that either, council member, but some council members, have asked us to look into that,
Going even lower, right?
and some are even lower in some places. I mean, so speed control, through just speed limit signs are another one of those things that we can look at, and particularly, I think that just makes sense that when you're in a school zone, that you do lower the speed to a minimum of, or to a maximum of 25 miles per hour.
I'll just chime in on that. There's a bill, I put it in last year too, but it looks like it's primed to go this year that would allow both the state and the counties to lower speed limits in school zones and sensitive areas without having to go through all the data collection and months of red tape and all that stuff. So if that passes, then you should be able to just unilaterally do that.
Just to say, Kamalawiki, for example, it is 25, except during school, it's 20. Already.
And how many are paying attention to that?
None.
Okay, we don't.
Well, one of the
Tommy?
things working with your office, Director Morton, was there's a 25 or 20 near the school, and then as you go up around the curve, it's faster.
30.
So one of the things we're suggesting is make it all 25 so that people don't have to adjust their speed. Just keep it at 25.
No, that's just
a thought.
Speed cameras.
I was gonna say, actually, that's probably like the best use case.
Really good place to put the speed camera is one of the first ones.
Yeah.
Well, real quick though, periodically we actually had the police come out.
Yeah.
And they're good. People are good for about a week, and then they go right back to speeding.
Thank you. I just want to add on that 20 mile an hour, that's a speed advisory sign. That's different from a regulatory, the speed limit sign, the white. So warning signs or advisory signs, I'm not going to speak on behalf of HPD. It's up to their discretion. But those are advisory signs because of the geometric change in the road, whether it's a curve. So it is not necessarily like a speed limit sign, like you're. No, you mentioned 20 mile an hour speed sign. So that's an advisory sign. That's a different sign than a speed limit sign. Yes.
Okay.
Just want to make that clear.
Yeah, just change it all to kilometers per hour. Problem solved.
At the gas station, liters, etc. Okay, Mr. Spengler, we're still in. You're going to be the last in round one. Mr. Spengler, are you still there? I see your hand is up. Sam Spengler. You're not the Sam Spengler, KHNO 2, TV2. It may not be, or somebody else.
So that's him. He lives right there.
Sam Spengler actually lives in the district. Okay, Sam, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah,
Okay,
sorry,
good.
Representative. I couldn't get myself unmuted.
Oh,
Yeah, so speaking today as a Camilo Iki elementary school parent, thank you so much for hosting this meeting. First of all of you, it's very informative. Thank you for taking all of our concerns. Really appreciate it. Also, thank you to the Honolulu Police Department. They've done a wonderful job of enforcement in front of the school, especially when some parents had concerns about the rampant speeding up and down Hawaii Kai Drive. And that enforcement has really, really worked in times where the enforcement has been there. Unfortunately, when that enforcement isn't there, the speeding, once again, is very, very rampant. So in one of my roles as a pitching coach, I actually have a radar gun. So being that I'm not a police officer, I can take that thing up and down the street and people don't pay attention to me. And so, yeah, it's pretty common to see 45 to 55 miles an hour coming up and down the road, both directions, which is very concerning as a parent. I live about 200 feet away from the elementary school, and I still drive my son to school because I'm terrified of crossing that street and really walking along the side of it, because I've also seen at 8:10 in the morning, right after school hours, the school zone sign, it's a 20 mile an hour school zone sign right there, plowed into by a car. Right along the sidewalk, right in front of Community Elementary School. So I think the speeding definitely is the factor there, because the light, it works great for a crosswalk, but because the speeding is so rampant, it's very difficult, especially with, all the keiki right there at the park, having all the sporting events. So we have the signage. We just installed the median marker within the crosswalk. to stop for pedestrians. All these things are great measures, and I support. But until we get a grasp on the speeding, I don't think there's anything that is going to work. So I really like what Senator Lee had to say about Kealahou Drive. I've been there. I've done stories out there in my job as a news reporter. I've talked to residents out there. They've been supportive, like you said, even after initial opposition. So my question is, when the potential 3-lane road was pitched, it was pitched as I think both the west and east ends of Hawaii Kai Drive, which I think function very differently. So I think the 3-lane road, if this could be pitched to the neighborhood at large as just being on this east end on the part next to Kealahou Elementary School as a way to calm traffic and speeding, I think that might be a little bit different. We might get a little bit different response. And if not, to be honest, I think it's still worth it. If people have 20 seconds, 30 seconds more of their drive time getting home, I think we should all as a community pay that to keep our keiki safe and to prevent something like Sarah from happening again. I'd hate to have another keiki tragedy to have to spur change. Thank you all so much for your time today.
Sam, thank you for the one who initially covered this when we did the August town hall meeting. And now I know you have your son and your daughter or your family concerned in this. I hope you continue to follow us because this is only the second meeting. We've got to go into the implementation and in the bouncing off of the community, some of the things that are going to be proposed. Roger, did you want to add a couple of comments to his or?
No, I mean, I'm writing down a lot of notes here,
Okay.
but I thank you, Sam, very much for your comments.
Okay. I have a gentleman who's going to give his name, his question and concern.
Jason Yoshimoto, principal of Kealahou Elementary School.
Oh, great.
Jason, my apologies. Thank you.
Okay.
I know him, but I didn't remember.
So I think it's really behavior. Yeah. Is trying to figure out whether we physically change behavior or we have to enforcement or some aspect to it, but we got to do something. You guys put the sign. I cross that Ahukini crosswalk every day. I'm lucky to serve my community. But I don't want one day that just one accident and it's going to change the whole community, and so whatever you guys do, I trust the science, I trust the data, but something's got to change. HPD does a great job, and it's just like kids. When the teacher's watching, everybody's well behaved. When the teacher's not there, it goes back to normal. And so they're there for a good week, great, right? Then after that fades, it's gone. I know HPD had a grant that they had a solo bike officer down sitting at the traffic light for a little bit. That worked good. The PD wasn't tagging anybody, just his presence, helping the kids cross the street, things like that. Perfect. There in the afternoon, there in the morning, we noticed a difference. I mean, we even noticed it on our campus because the flow into our parking lot is different, right? And so I think it's in that sense is just finding solutions, trying solutions. I think our community will, if we see that something's being done and it might not work the first time, may take some tweaks along the way. But just like anything else, I think if there's attempts to resolve the issue, I think we will be on board. We will deal with traffic. Like I said, I walk my dog along that street. I drive up Sandy Beach, go to a golf course, all of that kind of thing. But I think the other sad part about it that I reflect upon is these are usually our families living in the community as well that we're dealing with this kind of behavior. So I think is if we kind of take it upon ourselves that we don't want to be a community that has to deal with a tragedy, then I think in the long run it will work the best for everybody. So thank you guys.
Mr. Principal, well said. In fact, no one could have said it on behalf of the keiki than you, because this is the ultimate. This is the one who speaks for all the families, for all the mothers who have called our office. And my apologies for not recognizing immediately, because when the principals come, hey, all the teachers and all the kids come to attention. So any comments from the principal of Kealahou School who sees this every day and he personally doesn't feel very safe himself?
Thank Robert.
Yeah, well, I think we should do something just like the principal, too.
I'll just chime in because you made a good point about behavior, and I think we all, if you've ever gotten behind the wheel of a car, at some point have probably sped, probably accidentally ran a stop sign or didn't pay attention, text while driving, whatever. And that's just human nature. We are fallible, and I think for a long time, we've assumed that we can push people into better behavior and it's going to solve all our problems. And I think our experience for the last 100 years has proven that that's just not the case. People are going to be people. They're going to be fallible. So when we think about those areas where you have chronic speeding or chronic crashes or whatever, sure, yeah, there's behavior involved. But ultimately, if we can't entice people to behave differently simply by putting up a sign or shaming them into it, it fundamentally comes down to like a situation of design and the infrastructure, right? It's a chronic problem with the way that something's designed. And I mean, this is no like affront to DTS or the state DOT or anything, right? Because stuff's been here for like 100 years. But as we think about how to change that behavior, I think it's that two-track process, right? How do you do the quick, easy things that can help in the short term, but also how do we think about that long-term strategy that's going to create a road where you don't have to think about consciously reducing your speed and afford yourself the opportunity to be fallible and then blank out and just, go 55 in front of the school. So how do we create a road where people are naturally, when they're not paying attention, going to be going 25 or 20 or whatever it is? And it's hard because we all like to think we're traffic engineers. I more than anybody drive through, I'm like, this is wrong, or this will never work. And then you have to go through the data and everything else and go through the engineering schematics and realize okay, I didn't consider this other thing over here or this or that. So I'm just really encouraged by all the input here because I think this is what's needed when we figure out how do we approach this in a way. And I mean, to the city's, or I forget who brought it up, or maybe it was Herb, about the traffic cams in one place being one of those tools and other folks talking about the other mechanisms. I mean, I think it's going to be a combination of things at the end, to the extent that we can help collaborate with the city on the state side. I think we're totally game to.
Can I chime in?
Possible to have more members of the Senate and the House of Representatives encourage all the others who work for you, with you, and for us to do the same as you are doing. I mean, make this an island-wide and a statewide approach. You're all doing wonderfully, bringing these subjects to our attention. And unless you do it and get people involved.
That was inspiring spontaneity. That was good.
What? I want this to be infectious with everyone else.
Thank you for that. We're going to go to the online comments or questions. And I know the hands, Mr. Sims, if you're still there, you were lined up first. And then I believe it's Mr. Jones. Edward, is that you? Ed Jones, and then Natalie again, and then Mr. Thatcher. Mr. Sims is not there. So we'll go to Mr. Jones. You have not asked a question yet. Please, Ed, please proceed.
Thank you, Rep. Ward. I appreciate this evening. A very good discussion. A quick comment, not related. Just want to make that plug. Director Morton, mahalo so much for adding handy vans to the fleet. That's been tremendously helpful in getting them out here in this area. Just kind of to repeat a comment from the previous safety briefing that you held from Police Major. I think it's important to cover the intentional scenario. That's for this stretch of highway, folks driving more than 55 miles an hour. That's an aggravated offense. The Police Major did point out that enforcement on the aggravated speeding really does make life miserable for the driver. And word gets around if those tickets are issued. So I will continue to encourage, particularly the aggravated, handing out those aggravated tickets.
So that is the comment. And do we have any response?
Well, currently on the books, there is excessive speeding charge, but the person has to be going 30 miles over. So if we reduce the speed there down to 20, the likelihood of getting the aggravated speeding ticket issued is better. That's a license suspension, $500 fine. You got to go to driving school, and you get what's called an SR22. So maybe that's something we should look at, lowering the speed limit, and then get the cops out there citing these folks. But while we were talking, initially, Director and I were thinking maybe a traffic light there might be good. But after the principal spoke, I'm thinking people, when the light's green, they're going to go just as fast. Maybe this is another good candidate for a traffic circle right there. As you got to slow down to get around that thing.
Enough space, enough room?
Oh, yeah, I think. But I'll defer to the experts.
Well, we would never say that we would have, without doing an evaluation, that we wouldn't sort of say, I'm pretty sure at the T intersection that looks doable to me. But even on that one, I think that we would need to have a professional evaluation of it. I did want to mention too, I want to thank Senator Lee and others for putting more money into safe routes to school, safe streets for all. It's really, we have had several collaborative things with the state that have been financed by some of these new programs that Senator Lee has been sponsoring. And thank you very much for that.
Oh, no, thanks. I don't take credit. There's, I think, situations like this all around the state in every community, right? And there's really, frankly, not enough money we can throw at it to solve the problem, given the lives that are on the line. There's one thing I wanted to comment on. Tommy's point about excessive speeding and all of that. One of the measures that I think is also going to pass in a few weeks here at the Capitol will require that anybody convicted of, 30 miles per hour and over, it's the same one I'm thinking of, you'll lose your license. You have to go retake the whole test all over again. So also if you get a DUI, convicted of a DUI, you got to go through the whole thing all over again. So one more just major pain in the neck to try and deter people just a little bit.
Okay, thank you guys for that. We're going to comments round two. You want to start round two, General Pauling? Otherwise, we got Natalie is on deck and Mr. Thacker will be round three. General, you want to take this and make your point?
My wife said to be real brief, so you have to leave it, be somewhere at 6. But I like what the principal said about changing the behavior. And Tommy, I kind of agree with you on the aggravated driving speed and the extra fines you get with it, except for in school zones. I think they're different. And 30 miles an hour over the limit to get it, or 20 or whatever it may be, is simply a school zone. And that should result in a aggravated fine if you're going over speed. That's my comment on that. So
I like that too.
Inspired by you, sir, Mr. Principal. You heard that kudo. Okay, Natalie, your comment, a question, please.
Yeah, thank you. So we've been talking mostly about pedestrians, but I wanted to highlight that it's not just pedestrians. A couple of years ago, my son was in a crash, and this is a little bit odd, but he was on a motorcycle and a moped driver was speeding down the hill and crashed into him. And there was a witness who saw that. So it is a huge problem on that road. And being familiar with the options that the city has available, I'm not really sure what would work as far as putting facilities in. However, I do think that if people were ticketed and had to pay higher fines, that would let them, have them think about it the next time and deter them from doing it. I appreciate the bill that's going through that Senator Lee mentioned about losing licenses for excessive speeding, DUIs, that kind of thing. But I think just the regular speeding, if there were a higher fine, that would also help improve things. With respect to the speed cameras, I just wanted to mention my concern on that is that the owner of the vehicle is guilty, and that just goes against our foundation where we're innocent until proven guilty. So I don't support that. But thank you so much again for having this discussion.
Thank you, Natalie. You make good points, and you remind us that not only cars and not only pedestrians, but bicyclists are there. Roger?
We actually have enhanced fines for speeding within school zones. We could make them higher. we could do that, but we already have on the books enhanced fines for speeding in school zones.
Okay, we are reaching on the 2-hour mark. We're going to be wrapping up, but we want to hear from Mr. Thacker before we make closing comments. Mr. Thacker, please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate this whole discussion. You can't imagine how appreciative we are of me and my family, of everyone meeting here today. The Director Morton and Representative Ward and Senator Lee and Councilman Waters. We truly appreciate your taking the time and listening to us all about this, because we know that our area is on the edge of the island, and we know that with that beauty and that that nice kind of family living comes dangers, of course, because the speeds are higher and people go much faster. I just had 2 comments about this. One was about the school. I know just another issue that I've noticed a couple times. I remember somebody saying about the policeman that does the crosswalk, God bless him. But I know one time somebody was coming in. The school zone also needs to be made a no passing zone. So people actually get on the right-hand lane and try to speed down and see if they can try to get in front of the people in the left lane. So they'll come speeding down and then cut people off. And that's exceptionally dangerous. And I've actually experienced that while the cop was in the intersection trying to do crosswalk. He literally came down. I was in the left lane and I didn't see him. He sped from on the right lane and cut me off right in front of the cop car, literally right in front. And he was literally the bicycle, the motorcycle cop, and he was doing his job. He almost got ran over. Like I had that incident just about a month and a half ago. And I was like petrified for the cop. And he was just like, whoa, doing his job, trying to walk the kids across the street at Kamiloki, school down the hill. And that should be made a no passing zone too, except for the people that are having to merge in, as they're taking the turn coming out of the school, and just increased fines in there. Obviously, the one other thing is I just want to say thank you to everybody once again. And, whatever mechanisms we do to change behavior, because sometimes people are slow to change behavior. So things that everybody mentioned, like design wise, what we can do with the streets, what we can do with the way things are produced. I mean, I know there's a grade going up and down the hill, but there must be something that we can do, maybe different than a rumble strip, or maybe a smaller speed bump, but something to let them know that they need to slow down, because human nature is such that if we're late for work, a lot of people, unfortunately, are just, they feel like they've got an hour drive to work, and they're just going to try to do whatever it takes to try to get that 5 minutes extra. And that includes passing in the school zone. That includes racing down the hill, and that puts bicyclists, that puts pedestrians, that puts everybody at risk. And, whatever measures we do to try to protect the pedestrians, the bikers, the schools, the children and the moms, and whatever we can do to make it a safe place, because Hawaii is wonderful in terms of pedestrians and bicyclists. We have great weather here and want to make it safe for everybody, including the car drivers, and find some happy medium where everybody can be satisfied but yet safe. So thank you very much once again for taking the time to listen to all of us, and God bless all of you. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the solutions to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thacker. Well stated. It's time to give closing comments. And I'm going to say the first closing comment is a question to all of us, but primarily to Mr. Morton. Usually at meetings, you say, where do we go from here? What follows from here? So Mr. Morton, would you care to do your closing comments with kind of that in mind, and then others will chime in?
Well, first, I also want to thank everybody for taking the time. I think it was a good discussion that we've had here. There's some ideas that were thrown that as far as next steps goes, I'll ask my staff to take a look at some of them. Low cost things, those are things that, that we can do sometimes in a matter of months. Higher cost things take us a little bit longer because we have to budget for them and we have to do all of those kind of things. But I definitely, I live in the area. I know the issue on the street. I know that there is speeding that occurs. You don't have to, really do studies to know that. You just drive on the street and you know that. So there are things that we can do. I think the hard part, Gene, is going to be coming up with something where we can get a mostly consensus. I don't think we'll ever get a 100% universal agreement on anything, but paint is paint. And nice thing about paint is if it don't work, it's not that much of an investment. It's not like building a new road or something like that. So there are some pretty low cost things that we can do, and we've done this in other communities. If sometimes if they don't work, we will reverse them. But that's what I would ask everybody to do, is be open minded.
And you are the architect of behavioral psychology between those who are behind the wheel. So we will follow a lot what you've got. Tommy, any closing comment?
Yeah, I think it's important in all three of these areas that everybody on this table at least are on the same page.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think when we put an idea out there to the community, we got to support it together. For example, I keep coming back to what Sam Spangler talked about. What happened in Kailua on Kealahou Drive. That, I think, is a great idea that I think will work right here on Hawaii Kai Drive. And again, this is a different part of Hawaii Kai Drive. I think the people who are complaining about this traffic calming was a different part of Hawaii Kai. It's going to take a little while to get used to, but I think the narrowing is a cost-effective, immediate way we can get it done. But even on that, I'm not sure if we're all on the same page here on this table. But thank you for putting this together, Gene. Thank you to the community for coming, and especially our DTS director, who I know is really busy right now during the budget process. So thank you, guys.
So be generous with this budget. Townhall.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for participating and taking the time to sort of share on this, and especially to the city. You guys, Roger and Tommy and your guys' crew have been doing phenomenal work all around the island. And I don't think half these projects could come to fruition without you guys leading the way. So totally appreciate everything that you've done so far. And I think to the extent that on the state side, we can be helpful, perhaps with like funding or other partnerships with DOT or whatever it is. Definitely want to. And Tommy, I think especially appreciate your comments about making sure, like, now that we have identified sort of the key issues and the key areas, that we can all get behind sort of a collective solution. Because again, I think to your point, Roger, not everybody's going to agree 100%. We have to accept that, but we also have to weigh that against the letters that we have to send every so often to families saying, sorry, your kid died, but the community didn't want to fix this one thing over here, so we didn't do it. I mean, that is a very hard thing to justify. And I mean, just in my time that I've been around, Tommy's been around longer than me in some of these areas. Like in Waimanalo, for example, almost like clockwork, every couple of years, there's a kid or somebody who gets killed on the highway trying to cross to get to school or get to the bus stop. It's just like clockwork. And there's no reason why it has to be that way if we all decide that safety is our priority and we ought to work together to do something. And while we're not all going to agree, I think at the end of the day, I think we all agree that something should be done, and we damn well should try.
Well said. I think there is a consensus that we need to act, and we've got some options, and we will be waiting for some of the design, Aaron, which you and Roger have, and an excellent staff, because these calming devices have popped up everywhere. And I'm sure in Hawaii Kai, we will find something that fits well. And with the community, it will be vetted, as they would say. And I'm really impressed with some of the creative things. I've never thought of a roundabout in Hawaii Kai until today. I've never thought or heard about that possibility. Creative thinking. I mean, look, we're Americans. We're problem solvers. We do things faster, quicker, cheaper, etc. And solving Hawaii Kai problems with the traffic is of top priority right now. So thank you, Roger and Aaron, Tommy, for what you're doing at the City Council, for the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, and for you, the live audience. Thank you, guys. Hopefully you found parking. You didn't have a problem getting here.
It's expensive here.
You have to pay every time you come into the Capitol. Hold on to your wallet. and particularly for the principal of Kealahou School. You've won the hearts and minds of this panel. And for those of you online, thank you for participating. I want to thank Kyle, who from the technical side of HMIR, and Jillian of my office. And are you back there, Colin? Colin, thank you guys for making this possible. And we have yet to fight for the kids and the keiki. So that is the sign off, and aloha. Thanks for viewing.
Aloha.